Well, Ambrose, I'm still trying to discover who Ambrose is, really. It's a question of working out my influences and my inspiration and trying to give them shape. I try to discover more of myself all the time. I try to forget what I've done and break new ground. It's a very, very difficult question to answer that, because hopefully I'm ever changing in the way that I perceive life and the way that I process those influences and those experiences to make them into works of art. So there's no one point that I can say this is Ambrose. My early work was Ambrose at that time, and my recent work is Ambrose now. I think a look back on my entire body of work would give an indication on the ways I've travelled through my art career, and I'd like not to pin myself down to any particular style, though that is inevitable, that will happen as I keep on working. But I work mainly through my feelings, through my interior life. I try to see what's inside there. There's a phrase, this is coming back into use again, and that is that it's okay to feel again. Art movements have gone through a period where the heart was not allowed into the work, but I think we're coming back to a place now that it's no shame anymore to talk about feelings and inspiration and emotion. I think for me they form the cornerstone of my work. I don't find it easy to work through what I see. I find much more fulfillment in working through what I feel and through what I experience. So if I had to put it in a word, Ambrose is lived experience or felt experience manifesting itself in works of art. By this I mean there could be a painting, it could be a digital image, it could be a sculpture, it could be an installation. I try to find the expressive form that is appropriate to the type of work I want to produce. Feelings, thoughts. Well, difficulty is the word that comes to mind straight away. The difficulty of weighing up an inspiration, the difficulty of weighing up an idea for a work, in the sense that is it a cliche that I'm working with? Is it has it got any substantiality? And I find it difficult to work out what is a real move on me to create a work and what is just an echo of somebody else. So that represents for me quite a struggle when I'm working. An example of this is when I'm working, I've realized that I need to start big, and then as the work progresses I seem to chop off bits and stay with the essential bit of the work. So that for me represents quite a struggle, as I said before. Feelings, trying to produce work which is relevant. Relevant to me, first of all, and relevant to the society we live in today. There are so many images being produced, there's so much art being produced today, in so many fashions, so many manner, that I have to sort out feelings in a very concrete way. and try to integrate with society. We do live in a postmodern society, which basically means that in one word anything goes, and anything is going to be acceptable sooner or later. And in this multiplicity of ideas, trying to understand the movement of societies, of how we are developing as peoples, the old tested ideas don't seem to be valid anymore. I believe the works being produced today, especially the performance work, the installation work, Damien Hirst, I think, is a major artist of today. He's bringing to us an obvious art which becomes beautiful in his hands. Incongruity is another of the subjects that interests me. For too long now we have thought that the life has been cut and dry by governments, by religion, etc. And I find that that is not so. Life is made of little moments, and little moments amount to big moments. And I'm trying to take a close look at life and produce work which is not the grand theme, is not the grand subject, but is relevant to the man in the street. What do I want to project in my work? Well, I think it's old age, beauty, truth. It's, I think, the essentials that I'm trying to put across. I don't know how to do it. I don't know what beauty is supposed to look like, and I don't know what truth is supposed to look like. But what I try and do with my work is I try to have as my measuring stick sincerity and honesty. I will sign a work which I feel I've been honest with and I've been sincere with. I don't particularly want to produce highly finished works. Neither do I want to work for the public. I try to be true to my sense of calling, of expressing myself in the most honest way I possibly can, with what I've been given, and I sort of try to limit and contain myself within my area of experience, my area of expertise. And if I'm able to do that, then I'm quite satisfied. But it cannot be pinned down. It's very difficult to pin down what I want to do. The moment I pin down what I want to do, in my particular experience, I lose it, because I enter into working in an intellectual way. And I don't think I produce my best work when I work intellectually. I think I produce my best work when I work from an instinct, from an emotion, and I just get carried away with the marks on the canvas, being guided, as I said, by a sincerity of feeling, and being brave enough to scrap it all up and start again if I need to. The importance of colour? Well, none, and of maximum importance, depending on the type of work that one is. if one is a painterly painter, one is a colorist, then color is everything. And people like the Impressionists would not be able to work without color. If you remove all the color from an Impressionist painting, you're left with nothing. But on the other hand, if you remove the color from a Michelangelo or from a Leonardo, then you're still left with a beautiful drawing, which still stands in its own right. So it all depends on the focus of the artist that's working. For the colorist, the painting is the color, the painting is the mood, the color is the message. But for the person who doesn't need to go to color to express themselves, and I would talk about the academic schools, and I will talk about the Renaissance painters. They can have color, but their works will be substantial, they will be beautiful, they will communicate without the need for color. So there's nothing written down about color except that it's in the eye of the artist that wants to use it. In my case, I have painted with pure color, and I have worked on drawings which have been color drawings. I just use color as I need to use color. I don't compose. I don't start thinking, well, this is going to be this color, this is going to be another color. I start working with lines, and if I need to, I start working with lines. If I have to leave the lines aside and start with color because the painting is demanding that I change to color, I will do this. I will not set myself in any way any compositional or agenda for a painting. I will use whatever means is at my disposal at that given moment in time. I have come to learn that a single moment in a painting is crucial. If I manage to achieve a single mark which is right, a single tone which is right, a painting can be created out of just one moment, out of just one tone. A whole painting can be created from there. Watercolors or oils? I feel that very limiting. Digital stills, sculpture, installation, found objects, body art, sound. I will use anything at my disposal that I feel is right to express the work that I'm trying to do. I think that with the way that art is shaping today, the artist needs to have an all-round understanding of how art can now be created out of anything. In fact, it comes to mind a work I saw made out of rubbish bags, and it turned out to be a projection. It was a beautiful projection. These artists had gathered together empty rubbish bags, black bags, and positioned them in such a way that when they projected a backlight onto it, the shadow created was the body of a female nude. And it was a beautiful image to be seen as a shadow on a wall. And then you realize where it's coming from, and our rubbish is creating art through the eyes of an artist. So no, I will not limit myself to any particular medium. I will try and find the necessary products so that I can achieve my aims. Having said that, my main bulk of work is made up of oil paintings and watercolors, but I have examples of the other mediums that I've mentioned before, and I'm at the moment now I am starting to think of video work. I think there is much to be discovered with movement and sound in as an art form. So I think it's an all-round medium that is my preferred choice, not to limit myself to any particular mediums, but just to be open. Technical abilities. I believe technical abilities are linked to intention. So if my intention is to produce an oil painting in the traditional academic manner, I would then have to go and learn the techniques required to produce that type of work. But in my case, I know how to do a painting once I've done it, in the sense that because I give myself such a free agenda. For a case in point is a work I'm doing at the moment. I was trying to do some work with a nude, and I start working very freely, very openly. I just start to draw and to paint. And a passage in the work intrigued me because it was capturing a sense of flesh. And I stopped and looked further into it and realized that what was giving me the effect of flesh was that I had inadvertently, or without thinking about it, I had painted in a layered technique. In other words, the underlying color on the canvas was showing through the top coat. And I realized that there was some mileage in this, in that I could achieve a sense of skin and flesh by using this technique. On reflection, I realized that I had been using a traditional academic technique. And so what I've done now is I have started a fresh painting, which hopefully I'll be working on later on, using the traditional academic technique, which is a technique based on painting in layers. So this is an example of the technique coming second, the technique coming to help me reach where I want to go. Not the case that I have a technique, so I'm going to paint in that technique. Because sometimes a work is not a painting, sometimes the work is a sculpture, sometimes the work is an installation. So I cannot have a technique, a rigid technique there, that will only allow me to paint or work in a certain way. So for me, technique is something that I will look for after I know where I'm going, and then I will find a technique suitable for that piece of work that I'm trying to accomplish. Art and money. I would add another one to that, time. Without time there's no art. Time is money. And which brings me to patronage, to sponsorship, and the relevance of hard cash going the artist's way, so that the artist can have the time to create, to produce. And it's not like it used to be, like art patronage, where the rich individuals of the cities and towns, they would support and they would encourage and they would set the artists free to be able to create their works. So they are both linked. There's no art without any money. That's how it is. And I must say straight away how grateful the Art Association in Gibraltar is to the governing bodies for having given us the premises at Casemates, because that is a step towards giving us a space so we can sell our work and so be able to finance further projects. And also to the government again for sponsoring the exhibitions, which again encourage and do part with some money. Also the local collection, where the local government also purchase works. And all this helps and encourage the local artists to keep on working. It would be brilliant to win the lottery and give up the day job, but that doesn't happen in reality. So I would like to make a point here how important it is patronage to produce art. At the end of the day, a nation lives behind their wealth in one of the main ways is art. If we go to the galleries of the world, what we see is a heritage of beauty created by the individual artists. And when we want to look into history, into the past of civilizations, what do we find? The artifacts, the bits of art they left behind, the temples, the music, the sculptures, the paintings, the writings. These are the heirlooms, these are the heritage that nations and peoples leave behind. So I would encourage patronage in the arts. Working space, my working environment. Well, essentially, I'm a studio artist. I like the limitations of a room where I have to create, think, and work. I find working outdoors very distracting, not to say the least, with the moving clouds, the sun that changes, the shadows that change. They do not interest me at the least. Because I am more of an expressionist, I am working from inside myself. I need a space that I can sort of think, I can paint, I can leave it, come back to it. I am not dependent on external forces for me to work. I'm not saying that that's going to be like this forever. I might change and find inspiration in light and in movement, but at the moment I prefer working indoors, where I can start and stop whenever I feel like it. The perfect works of art. Well, this room is full of perfect works of art. And by that I mean that perfection in a work of art is relevant to the integrity of the work of art. Art is about intention. It's about sincerity. If I have been sincere with my expression, if I have achieved my intentions, then for me that is a perfect work of art. I'm really pleased that we have not got a divine work of art to compare or set as a standard. So it means that there are many perfect works of art because it's related to the artist that has achieved it. So the artist that produces a work of art that is not in sincerity with his intentions or her intentions, and lets it go and signs it and exhibits it, even though it might be perfectly technically speaking, a perfect painting. If that painting inside the artist's mind is still not achieved, that painting is not, or that work of art is not perfect, because the artist is putting forth an insincere manifestation which is not fulfilling the criteria that he set out himself or herself to achieve. So art is not competitive, even though we try to make it, even though it's sometimes necessary for the encouragement and the propagation of the arts to make it competitive. Art is not a competitive subject. Art is an expressive subject, and it is the expression of individuals who give themselves to express themselves through art forms. So I would say that every sincere work of art, every manifestation that has been honest, would be a perfect work of art. Influences, in other words, what makes me tick. A desire to create, a desire to make something that's not there, that doesn't exist until I make it. And then for that thing to communicate at some level with other people. That is my guiding force, I would say, my guiding impulse. Academically, influences, I must have too many, but I try not to think about them. I try not to be influenced by any particular artist, because I fall into the trap of mimicking, and I want to keep away from all that. But I know that I am influenced by other. We are all influenced by, all artists are influenced in some measure by other artists and by other works.